I'm Ted, and I'm talking. And today's topic is about Salesforce Lightning. And I thought this was a timely time to hit up some of our learning so far in the adventure into the Lightning experience and share it with our friends and users. Just to get started, I'd like to thank all of our customers, and I'd like to thank our investors for supporting job science in programs like today's webinar. I'd also like to speak to one thing that I bring up in every one of the TED Talks, which is our mission here at Job Science. And it's really to develop a thesis on the changing workplace and the Uber economy or the gig economy, where we're really seeing a shift in who controls the power of recruitment. And that power is in large part moving into the hands of the candidate, and having the best tools to interact and manage your activities with those candidates is how you build relationships. And part of the reason that Job Science is built on the Salesforce CRM is specifically because we are trying to build software to help you emphasize and improve those relationships. So let's get into Lightning. It sounds like some of the audiences use Lightning already, and some of you haven't. It sounds like we've got some people on the call who don't use Salesforce, so they probably don't even know what Lightning is. And so I may say some things that some of you already know. If you'll just humor me for today, that would be great, and we'll hopefully have a fun session. To let you know, there are 4 or 5 handouts that I've attached that you can download during the day's presentation. You can also post questions, and I will try and answer your questions at the end of the webinar. And if they're really good questions, maybe I'll try and answer them as we go along. But I'd love to have you interact with me to make sure that this content is valuable for you. So, what's on today's agenda? First off, we're going to talk about what is Lightning, what is the new Lightning mobile integration, what is the new Lightning email integration. We're going to talk about how to make something easy to use, and a new tool called Optimizer that will actually go into your system and tell you which fields in the system you're using and which fields you're not using, which fields on your page layouts, which fields your login users are using in the system, so that you can really get a sense of how people are using your product. Also, we're going to talk about this idea of reducing the number of steps in the process so that as you roll Lightning out to your users, you don't just give them a new interface, you give them a better experience. Finally, we'll talk about that business flow and how you can take those change steps. We'll walk through some of the new Lightning utilities that Job Science offers to our customers to help them do a better job in recruiting. And then we'll go through a checklist of what to do if you're considering making the move to Lightning. So let's talk about the interface. For those of you who know the Job Science product, you probably know us in the Classic Edition. And what we've done is started to change the interface to the new Lightning interface, and it looks a little different. So I thought I'd play a quick video to kind of show that off. And what you can see here initially is we're logging into the old Classic version. And what we've done in the Classic version is we've started to introduce in the latest versions of Job Science, even when you're in Classic, list views that are in the new Lightning experience, but we haven't changed the detailed view of data. Now, what is going to be different when you go to the system when you're in Classic versus Lightning is really the whole rest of the interface. So here we're looking at, what everyone's used to, those beautiful colored tabs at the top of the page that Salesforce puts out. And when we go into the detail record in the Classic Edition, it looks like this long screen that I have to drag up and down to see. And that is a big complaint that we hear about users, is it's too cumbersome to go up and down. So in the Lightning version of the system, there goes that snowman who's been replaced by the rainbow, who's now been replaced by the seagulls in the Summer Edition. We get a slightly different interface. First off, the tabs at the top have changed. What's nice is that whenever I leave off in Lightning, it will always take me back when I log in the next time to last where I was. But also, when I go into the records, I'm going to see a completely different way of looking at the data, and it's going to be left to right instead of up to down. It's also going to let me take my tasks and sync them, and my events and sync them into Salesforce from my Outlook calendar in a more effective way, because Salesforce has invested a tremendous amount of resource in getting the Outlook integration right. It also has a Gmail integration with a Gmail panel that I'll show you guys in a second. That's the same type of panel in Outlook. So there's just a lot of quantitative changes in the system, and it allows you to access all the same information you used to access in Classic, but really from a new interface. And that new interface has much prettier reports to access and dashboards, and still gives you the same qualities that you had in the traditional Classic edition, but really with a new look and feel. And the reason I start here is that even though you have a new look and feel, I don't believe your users are going to feel that it's a big improvement for them unless you take the time to really rethink how people do activity in the system, how they take notes in the system, and ultimately take advantage of things like the free files where you get file storage in the system. So there's some advantages here, but it requires a plan. And today's webinar is really built to try and help you start thinking about what that plan is going to look like. So let's go ahead and keep cranking forward here. So one of the things I'm really excited by in the new Lightning integration, and part of the planning that's required here is to think about what information you want in your email account. Is here you can see I'm in my my Gmail account, and Kevin has asked me how big of a boat do I want at the Salesforce Regatta we will be doing in Cowes, England, and I want a 65-foot powerboat that follows around as our picture boat. So I'm emailing that back to Kevin, but Colton is also in the email thread, and so I've hovered over Colton's name, and what it pops up over on the right-hand side in the box there is Salesforce Lightning Experience. So now from my Gmail account, I can actually see Colton's information. I don't have to log into Salesforce. I can do everything I need to do from my email, basically right from within Gmail. And if I do the same plugin for Outlook 365 or Outlook, I can have that same panel show up. So one of the challenges that we pose to our users as they think about using this new interface is what do they really want in that panel? Is that information relevant? Is it placed where they want it to show up so that when someone is accessing this information from their email, it's as effective as possible? So the first step on the checklist is how am I going to make email work for my users? It's a great way to get better adoption. It's a great way to make their life easier. But really think through what are the fields of information I want having show up in that email panel. All right. So that's the first step on the way to Lightning. The second step is to start thinking about your mobile experience. So many people think that mobile experience is taking all the information that they're currently using on the desktop and jamming it into the phone. It's not. Don't do that. That would not be good. What you really want to do is think about how you can define exactly what you need from your phone. So what I usually recommend to people is that they only put their contacts on their phone, their applications, and their job orders. If you do that, you can look up the phone number, the application, and the job order, and your candidates. If you're doing business development, yes, you probably want to put in some business development things like job opportunities. But you want to keep the phone really simple and not too deep. Again, you also want to think about what fields you want showing up when you're on the phone, because quite honestly, sitting on your phone and waiting a long time for the data to come down is no fun. There's a great new feature in the Salesforce One Lightning app that actually allows you to cache data, so even when you're not online, you can access that data and make changes to that data on your phone. So what is step 2 in the Lightning experience if you're going to do it right from my perspective? It's building what you want in your mobile experience. And again, the key criteria is what is the very least amount of information I can put on my phone and still make the phone a useful instrument. It's really easy to just put everything on your phone. It's just not very useful. So I've addressed email. I've addressed mobile. What else can I address with Lightning? Well, let's keep cranking forward and find out. So before I touch anything in the system, I'm going to go to that optimizer report. And what is the optimizer report? Well, when you go into setup in Salesforce, you can now go and click on a button called optimizer. And it will go and give you a book. Literally, it's a 37 or 40-page book that analyzes every part of your system. And the key parts that I found are really important are its field analysis and its workflow rules analysis. So I want to know how many fields are being used per object. I want to know which fields are never being used in the system. So the report will actually tell you, hey, you have 120 fields tied to your contact or your candidate record. Here are 62 of them that no one has ever filled out in the last 6 months. Here are all the fields on all your page layouts that no one has filled out in the last 6 months. Now, why is that such valuable information? It's really your blueprint to figuring out what you're going to take out of the system. What you want to do when you move to Lightning is you want to use this as an excuse to do a little spring cleaning, or maybe in this case a little summer cleaning, and you want to go through and you want to remove things. You want to remove as many fields as possible. I've created a little ROI calculator I'll share with you at the end of the webinar that talks about how much time you can save per recruiter by simply removing fields that are not valuable. But what you're going to find out over time is as you remove these fields that no one is using anyway, or you hide them, at the very least, if you don't want to delete them, please hide them. If you hide these fields from people and they don't see them, they're going to start believing that the system is easier to use. Now, when you combine the system being easier to use also with the concept of making it so that you have a new interface, users start to have a much better experience, especially now that they can access it from their phone in a more effective way and access it from their email. So let's keep cranking through this material. Business flow. What does TED mean by business flow? So many of the users of Job Science have multiple stages in their system. They have the application, the submittal, the interview, the offer, and the placement. But in the new Salesforce Lightning system, the system is really focused on making it activity focused and making it a little flatter, so doing more from one place. So the recommendation that we're coming up with for most of our customers is to really think about changing the number of stages you have in your process. And what we're encouraging people to think about is to really focus around just a couple of key things: the account record, the contact record, the job order, the job brief, the application record, sourcing center, and presentations. That means that we're really suggesting taking a whole series of steps out of the process. And why are we suggesting this? We think it's a big time saver for recruiters to not have to go to things that they're not sure there's any value in them entering. What we also find when we go back and we look at existing customers and we see what data is not being entered into the system is it gives us a pretty clear roadmap that the more steps you can take out of the process, the easier users think the system will be to work with. And they're probably right because they're not entering all that data we hoped they'd enter when we first gave them the system. So what do I mean by reducing stages? On the left-hand side, in blue, it's at the right-hand side, left-hand side, maybe it's my other left. But in the blue area, you have the traditional Job Science application, submittal, interview, offer, and placement. We're recommending that you get rid of submittal, interview, and offer. And again, our pro services team can help you with things like this. And you take it down to simply an application record with substages and a placement record that will let you record the placement. Now, by doing that, it puts all the activity and all the activity history that you're using in the system into the application record. And it makes it ultimately a lot easier for your recruiters to look at the information they're using, access the information, and you can still run reporting off that pick list. So if you're using the system or you're thinking about moving to Classic or you're thinking about starting to use Job Science, we really encourage you to start thinking through how few steps can I use in my system. And what I've heard a lot of people say is, well, wait, but I have interviews and they have multiple stages in my interviews. What we can tell you from looking at the vast majority of data is that if you want to reduce the friction of the user in using the system, you really have to flatten the number of steps that you're asking them to complete down to information that you can actually use. And what most people need is they need information about what is the status of their candidates. It doesn't mean that they need whole separate records or tables to maintain that information. So that's an important point, especially as you're building out your plan. That's how you're going to move to Lightning, because again, we want to make the system easier. So what have we made the system easier to do, and why is it worth moving to Lightning? Well, there are a whole series of tools that work in both Classic Edition and in Lightning, but they were specifically designed for Lightning. And as you simplify your system with less fields, with less information, but the information you're actually using, these tools can be really helpful. So let's take a look at some of these tools and see how they might be able to help you. So we've got Resume Power, the Resume Workbench, the Job Brief, the Sourcing Center, and the Presentation. And I think I may have thrown one or two other features in there, but we'll go through these and I'll try and explain to you why they're so great and how they'll help you in the Job Science system. So we built this thing called Resume Power, and if you've never used it before, you haven't heard of it, it's a really important tool. It's probably as important as the Optimizer, because what it lets you do is get lots of resumes in the system with ease. So how do you do that? How do you get those resumes in ease? Well, you'll see up at the top where it says batches. So I can take folders, and just like Box.com, I can bulk upload my folders into the system and I can do different folders for different jobs, but I'm bulk uploading those resumes. And it's really important if you don't have all your resumes in the system that you use this tool within the system called Resume Power, one of the Lightning tabs, to start loading up those candidates. We used to have a desktop application for loading candidates in the system. I have to admit it was a little kludgy, it was hard to maintain. This is very simple to use, very effective, and it will let you do batches of up to, I believe, 200 resumes per batch. So you just batch them up, set it and forget it, and start loading up your candidates, and then you tie them to shortlists for marketing, to the sources they came from, to specific job orders, and assign statuses to all the candidates. So if you have a large sourcing group, it just makes life a lot easier for them to operate in the system. The second Lightning tool that we built was the Sourcing Center. And I know that some of you have probably been using the Sourcing Center, but I'll just go into it. This tool was specifically built for Lightning in mind. And the whole idea of it is to allow you to start managing your shortlists and your search from a single interface. So being able to have your search in the Lightning experience, being able to have your Resume Power in the Lightning experience, it all seems to fit together and work very nicely, especially for those users who want to get a lot more utility out of our system. I'll just punch ahead here. There's also the CV Resume Workbench. Now, the purpose of the CV Resume Workbench is to allow you to redact information from resumes that you don't want people to see. We've gotten some feedback from users that are like, well, I want to be able to rewrite the resume all the way I want to write it. And I think if that's what you want to do, this may not be the right solution for you. You might want to look at our Conga connector. It allows you to create any type of document with any format the way you want as a PDF. But if you're not using the Conga connector, this gives you a great way to make sure that when you parse resumes into the system, the data is accurate. It then allows you to put your logo or image over the information and allows you to hide information from users so they don't see it. Again, this was specifically built for our Lightning experience. In addition to that, well, we already talked about Sourcing Center, so sorry to get that one back in there. We have Sourcing Center email marketing. So this is the ability for you to send lots of email through the Sourcing Center to users and monitor whether they're opening those emails that you're sending out. Now, I don't know how many of you were my guests on the last webinar where I talked about Washington Regional, but this is the exact tool that we're using with Washington Regional, where they've gone, I think so far, something like 40 interviews in the last month and a half from simply sending out email campaigns to their existing recruiters. And if you're interested in seeing that webinar, just a little plug for it, you can go to the GoToWebinar page or the GoToWebinar channel and you can watch reruns of last month's webinar, because it's probably one of the most effective ways to show people how to use JobScience through your email marketing. Again, this is a Lightning feature. So I'm trying to give you some pretty compelling reasons to think about your Lightning experience. The final one that I like the most is the research brief, and this is built in the Lightning experience so that it allows you to build a company profile, an assignment detail, an ideal candidate profile, and develop related information so that you can create a one-pager for your hiring manager or for your client that says, hey, I just want to confirm that I understand what you want. And it lets you email that to them and get their feedback. It lets you then share that brief with the people on your team so that they can help fill that position. And it's a great tool for organizing your thoughts about filling the position. Again, it's another 4 Lightning feature that we built. Now, this doesn't mean you can't necessarily access these features in Classic, but they were really built for the Lightning experience, and that's where they work best. So, what have we talked about so far? We've talked about how do I build an optimization campaign to make sure that I don't have a lot of dopey data in my system. We've talked a little about the new tools in JobScience. We've talked about how you can now access this from your email and from your phone more effectively. So what is my checklist that I'd like you to consider if you're thinking about moving into Lightning? A couple of things. Reduce steps. Write down the number of steps it takes to process an applicant. Look at the optimizer report and see, are we actually using these steps? Talk to your recruiters and see, are we using these steps? And if the answer comes back no, take them out. If you don't know how to take them out, reach out to our professional services team. We can probably do a short engagement with you to spin up and clean up your org. Go through the fields. I'll tell you, what I did recently at JobScience, and no one complained about it, is we had over 150 fields around our product internally that we use that no one was using. I took them out. I didn't get a single person who called me back and told me that I'd taken something out that was critical to how they use the system. So it's okay to take things out that no one uses. People will actually be happier. design your mobile experience. Don't just push everything to Salesforce One and tell people to download the app. Really get into, how do I do this? Now you might say, wait, how do I design the mobile experience? What do you mean, Ted, about me doing this stuff in Lightning? If you don't know, there's a free resource called Salesforce Trailhead. You just go onto Google and you type in Salesforce Trailhead, and there's free training available to show you how to do all these things in the system so that you can become your own guru of Salesforce, just like me. It's very exciting to be a guru. In addition to that, what I'm asking you to do is to think about the layouts. When you come over to Lightning, what do you want your left to right experience to be, as opposed to your up to down experience? And if you want to see samples, we're happy to show you our trial courses that are now optimized for the latest version of Lightning as examples of what you can use. The final thing is, if you think you're going to change to the Lightning experience, you need to put some time aside to conduct some training. You can't just flip over to Lightning and hope that your users get it. They will not get it. Now, one of the things you can do is Job Science offers training. If you go to our Job Science community, you can see the training calendar. You can ask for training. You can email us and ask for training as a case, and we will try and coordinate and figure out how we can get you to the right training or events to see how your users can use the Lightning experience. And we have recorded content and live content that you can share with your users, so this is not an overwhelming experience for them. Now, once you've gone live in the Lightning experience, post-launch, you want to rerun the optimizer report. So every 3 months, you should be running the optimizer report and seeing, are we making any improvements in terms of more fields and more information getting filled out in the system? If we're not, we have a user adoption issue, or we're asking for too much information. Generally, it's going to be both, okay? One of the things the optimizer report will tell you is how many times people are logging in, who has never logged in, and who hasn't logged in the last 14 days. So it is like a magnifying glass to figure out who's actually taking advantage of the system, really to drive adoption. And I really recommend that you run that report every 30 days as a check-in, and you really do a deep dive into it probably every 90 days, just to make sure you're getting value. The second thing is you want to review the types of users you have in the system. You want to sit with them and make sure that they're getting it. And then you probably want to plan 1 or 2 trainings that follow the first training a month out and another 90 days out to make sure that everyone is understanding what you're asking them to do, because sometimes change can be overwhelming. Now, I've done a little analysis of what I think the ROI is on doing this. And my belief is that for every field you can remove from the experience that people don't understand, you're going to save about 10 seconds per week per field. So if you remove 150 fields, you'll save 1,500 seconds a week. If you were to remove objects, so if you got rid of the submittal, the interview, and offer, and you condense them down into the application with just a pick list, you're probably going to spend about 10 seconds per week per object. So that would be about 30 seconds a week. Now, that doesn't seem like a whole lot. Why should I do it? It's only 30 seconds. If you add the new Job Science tools, let's assume that you added 3 of the new tools and started using 3 of the tools, I think you'll probably pick up another couple minutes a week. If you add that together and you think about 52 weeks, that could be about 25 hours a year per recruiter that you're saving. And when you think about 25 hours of your recruiters that could be spent doing more valuable things like recruiting, that's a big savings. So I'm going to go to the questions that we've been given by everybody, and hopefully there's some great questions here. Let's go through these questions and see what we've got from people. And again, if you have any questions, this is a good time to ask. So one question is the synchronization two-way? So I'm going to make a guess here, is that you're asking, is the synchronization between the email and the Outlook calendaring system bidirectional? Currently, the Outlook calendar is definitely bidirectional. It requires some setup, but it will be bidirectional between your calendar and Salesforce. And you can do it at the server level, or you can do it at the desktop level. When it comes to Gmail, I believe that they've just gone live with the Gmail panel. And I'm not sure if the calendar is bidirectional. I know it will push information from your Gmail system into Salesforce. I'm not sure if it's bidirectional, but we'll try and get an answer to that question. Julie will definitely be providing an email link to everyone to this presentation so that you can use it along with the materials that we have as kind of a checklist of how exactly to do this. There's another question from Susie. Does it only work with Outlook? We don't use it. We use Google Calendar. So, Susie, the answer is no, it works with Gmail. Now, there's a tool that I love called EBSTA, that if any of you have ever heard of it, you can basically put in EBSTA And EBSTA will fully link up and sync up your Gmail calendar, and it's well worth what they charge for it. It also has another feature that the Salesforce Gmail integration doesn't have, but again, it does cost a fee to use this EBSTA tool. It will actually go through and take every email that anyone in the office is sending and make it viewable from within Salesforce. So when you go to an account record, let's say for one of your clients, it will show you everyone in the organization, whether or not they link their email to Salesforce. It will show you every one of those in the system. Tyler has asked me the question, when do we plan on rolling out the Kanban views? Well, Tyler, if you decide to compress your steps in the applicant tracking process down into the application record and away from multiple stages in the process, you can actually use the Kanban to move your applicants from stage to stage. And for those of you who don't know what a Kanban is, it's a card view where you can sort of drag cards back and forth. So if you had, let's say, 30 candidates for a job, you could adjudicate and move those candidates all around the process. And maybe if that's an area that people are interested in understanding how to take advantage of Kanbans, happy to show that. Also, I think if you do a little of that training on Trailhead, you'll definitely be able to see Kanban. Now, every time I want to learn about something in Salesforce, of course, I just go to Google and type in a question, and I usually find the answer. So let's see, there are a couple other questions here. I'm really going very fast. Lisa, I'm so sorry. I should have read that question about 17 minutes ago. And I will provide the recording, and maybe I'll see if I can slow down my voice in the recording. So I apologize. Thank you for that feedback. Let's see. I just got 4 more questions. Let's see. Can a resume be converted into an application? Travel contacts need applications. Yeah. So what's interesting is in the new version of Lightning, we can actually carry the resume to different parts of the system. So if you're in an application and you want to go back and forth from the cover sheet or the resume, there's a way to set that up, Tim. I think what we just need to know is kind of what your vision of what you're trying to achieve. Now, I want to be fair with everybody here. It's not, it won't just come to you by osmosis. So if you want to move to Lightning today, we do recommend that you take on a professional service engagement so that we can help clean it up for you. That's why Patrick's like, is there any charge for this? How soon can we do it? We estimate that that there is a significant amount of effort, about 40 hours of effort involved with getting you over Lightning and doing the planning. So if you want to wait another 6 months, I'm sure we're going to figure out how to compress that down further. Right now, if you want us to help you move and you want us to help you rethink those rules, it definitely makes sense to engage our professional service team. So Patrick, hopefully I answered your question. If you link all emails in Job Science, does it clutter and overwhelm the notes section? So Julie, the way that the emails work is that you're going to see in the panel in Salesforce, in the panel in Outlook or Gmail, Salesforce. You can choose which emails to manually load into Salesforce so that you're not putting every email in, and those will show up as activity history. It will not clutter things up too badly. However, like I said, I love the EBSTA tool, and when you use the EBSTA tool, that will actually allow you to not have to have all the emails compressed into your activity history. It creates a separate section that lets you scroll through the emails. And where I found it really helpful is, let's say I get a call from someone and I don't know if my assistant's talked to them or someone else has talked to them. It lets me go look up their name or their company, and it shows me all the history there, which no one has had to enter. It just automatically is pulled from your Gmail into that. And I found it to be really helpful. So again, I'm not pitching EBSTA today because I think you can use the standard one just fine. But if you want to go to that extra level and really see all that information, it's really helpful. Let's see. I'm going to try and, oh, wow, Shazam. I don't know how to answer that, but I'll take that as a positive feedback. Let's see. Is there a charge for any of this? Well, I think I addressed that to Patrick. Where can I find the webinar and using email campaigns? Well, Tyler, we have a channel. We'll make sure that when we send out the recorded webinar today that we put a link to the channel where you can go back, and we have webinars on a whole series of topics like this. I do these TED Talks at least once every 30 days. And I try and cover topics that I think our audience would like. Will EBSTA be supporting Outlook and Lightning? I'm not sure that they will, Julie, but we can certainly have someone on our team take that as a question and try and follow up with you so that you'll get an answer to that question, because I don't think I can answer it off the top of my head. One thing I was going to say, though, is that I think that where the Salesforce integration is really good is in Outlook. For the first time, Salesforce and Microsoft actually tried to work together. And in working together, they really created a much tighter connection. So I would, if it was me and I was betting, I would start off with, can I live with the native integration and the native panel that works in Outlook 365 and also the desktop version, the latest desktop software, if you have the latest Outlook. I try that first, and if that's not meeting your requirements, we can certainly take another hack at it. But I think that's a pretty good play of the product. We generally recommend for folks who use Outlook a product called LinkPoint 360. I think that Salesforce nailed it this time, so I'm not sure that you need LinkPoint 360. There's one more question. I'm a single user. I'm fairly technical, and I want to try doing it myself. Can I do it? If you do want to do it yourself, Patrick, I recommend that you create a developer sandbox, which I think you can create from within Salesforce, and you mess around in your developer sandbox before you mess up your live system. That would be my recommendation, and also we'll be trying to do webinars over the next couple months where we show people how to do this themselves. But right now, it's something that's fairly new, and it does have a little complexity. Let's see, have we integrated with Pardot? We do have users who are using Pardot. However, we have a Mailgun plugin to JobScience that allows you to send out thousands of emails that we've spent a lot of time making better and better, and it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to use Mailgun Connector. So I'd check that out before investing in Pardot. If you've already bought Pardot, certainly, yes, you can integrate JobScience with Pardot. So I'm going to take two more questions, and then I'm going to, and if you want to jam in one more, I may pick it besides these other two. But I'll take two more questions, and then there will be a questionnaire for you after the webinar. And I love feedback, positive or negative. It helps me make these webinars better. Does JobScience have any integration with companies for competency exams? We don't. Well, no, wait, hold on, we do. I don't know the name, Tim, of the competency exam company, but there is one on the Salesforce App Exchange, and they have done an integration with JobScience that allows you to send out competency exams to users. So we will try and get the name of that product, and we'll email to you. And with answers to those questions, we'll try and also publish the answers to some of these questions to the email that we send out to people regarding the webinar with the copy of the recording. So Tim, we'll get you an answer on that one. I've got a couple things we have to answer. The last question is LinkPoint 360 Lightning ready? Julie, I believe that it's currently, I don't know. I'm gonna have to find that one out. I thought I knew. I know that it works great in Classic. Honestly, we're really trying to move our users to using Salesforce for the Outlook integration and Lightning because we think it's a cost savings for them. And where we feel EVSTA has something unique, which is the ability to draw all your emails in, we haven't seen that in LinkPoint yet. I love the LinkPoint product for standard users, but I would I'd say not for Lightning. Well, Dean, I'll take your question offline, but it sounds like you need to get some pre-sales assistance, so we'll make sure that that gets taken care of. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Thank you so much, and have a great week and a great weekend. Bye-bye.